Hey everyone, hi. I think we're live. Are we? Let me just check. Let me just make sure we are live. Okay, hi everyone. Now, well, we are just going to begin our session today. It's been only 1 minute. Uh, I would like you all, whoever is here, I would like to remind you to mark your attendance while you're here. Okay? Hey, Sudhanshu. Oh, sorry, Shubhanshu. I'm really sorry. Hey, Sumant. Hi. Hey, everyone. Hey, Pavan. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. And while people join, we are going to revise what we did yesterday. Okay, so let me go ahead and share my screen. Let's click on share screen, allow, and I hope y'all can see my screen. Okay, let me open the terminal. Let me make it the regular bigger size. Guys, I'm not doing anything right now. I'd just like everyone to come in. I'm just setting up just going to the project where we were yesterday. We are not going to begin for the next 2 or 3 minutes until everyone joins. In the meantime, I would advise you to go mark your attendance and we can take it from there. Okay. I will periodically go on and check the comments. So, hi everyone. Hey Abhilash, hi. Nice name, Filmi Dunia. Good evening. Is it too hot, Ashutosh? Too hot today? I feel it's too hot today. Yeah. So, is my terminal size okay? Do you want me to make my terminal even bigger, or is this size okay? Please let me know. Good evening, Yash. Ram Ram Bhai. Hey Pallavi. Pallav. Vedavi Pallav. That's a very unique name, my friend. I really thought that her name was something else. That's a very unique name. Hi Preeti. Perfect. Okay. I think we'll wait 1 more minute so that whoever has to join gets to join. And then we'll begin with, first of all, revising what we did yesterday. Hello, Sumit. Hey, Suraj. Great. Okay. Let's actually do some revision of what we did yesterday. Again, guys, before we do that, I think there is a little mismatch of expectations here, and I'd like to address it. Heads up, and before we even study anything. And I would really like your opinion on everyone's opinion on this, but that those are the facts as they stand. First of all, you guys need to understand that this is not a college lecture. I am not your professor. I am someone who's working in the industry. Why am I telling you all of this is because sometimes I cannot handhold each and every single person. What I expect is some level of competence. What I expect from you is, you need to understand how a class flows, and it's not like you have not seen all the things that we need to cover. I mean, Let's Upgrade has given you a list of topics that we need to cover at the very least. Now, my intention is to go above and beyond that. My intention is to teach you practical skills that I use, that I tell my team how to use. Like, since I have 9 years of experience, I am leading not one, but multiple teams. So my expectation is to give you the standards that I follow for multiple of my teams. That being said, all of that cannot be covered in 6 hours. So my idea is to first at least cover whatever Let's Upgrade has suggested, uh, and you know go above and beyond after that. But go above and beyond definitely. uh, that also includes that unfortunately I won't be able to repeat this lecture in English and in Hindi both. मैं हिंदी और इंग्लिश दोनों में नहीं समझा पाऊंगा. I can only use one language simply because it's quicker, right? How it will take a lot more time if tell you something in English and then I take the same time मैं फिर दोबारा वही समय लूं उसी चीज को हिंदी में समझाने में. It will take a lot more time. That's what my understanding is. So, and while I spoke, I had a word with people at Let's Upgrade. They are perfectly fine in me teaching in Hindi as well as English. I feel that English is a more widespread language, so it's more accessible. हिंदी में समझा सकता हूँ, but इस क्लास में नहीं. अगर आपको हिंदी में समझना है या आपको मुझे क्लास के बाहर किसी सोशल मीडिया पे कनेक्ट करना होगा, दैट इज वेयर आई कैन, वहाँ पे मैं आपको हिंदी में समझा पाऊंगा. As far as the class is concerned, you guys have seen the vast syllabus, so to say, that we have, and I need to cover that syllabus. Okay. That being said, I will go on and I will go on and do a quick revision of what we did yesterday. Frozen Primordial, your English is good, thank you. What's happening with it's my job to help the community. Oh, thank you, Aditya. Please go on and help the community. And yeah, okay. Anyway, please mark your attendance. I will go on and quickly revise what we did yesterday. We spoke about what is React, as in it's a library. Why do we need React? Why even use React in the first place? Setting up the React environment uh, using npx create React app, which is not at all recommended. Secondly, using Vite, which is the current standard, right? So Vite is what I currently recommend. I will open that up in code as well and explain it to you there. One sec. Let me bring my Visual Studio instance. Oh, come on. Yeah, let me bring my instance of Visual Studio Code here. So this project was generated using Vite, and that is the current standard. That is what is recommended. If you must create a React project, I recommend using Vite. I do not recommend using npx create React app. The people who made React, they do not recommend it. The you'll not go anywhere. It's just like uh, using a class component. I really learned yesterday while working with you guys that class component is in fact not deprecated. I was under the belief that since it's been really so long, the last time I used a class component was in 2021. I was kind of sure that they would have gone ahead and deprecated it just so that nobody goes on and makes a component in an API that is not supported, or that is not, they don't have document a lot of documentation on it, they don't have a lot of resources on it, people don't write blogs on it. So I was under the impression that they would have gone ahead and deprecated for the good of the community, but evidently that's not the case. Okay. So we spoke about setting up the environment using wheat. Then we were talking about the JSX syntax. JSX syntax is, first of all, what is JSX? JSX is simply uh, JS representation of HTML. Okay, that's simply what JSX is. Embedding expressions in JSX. Expressions is simply, you know, running regular JavaScript code inside a JSX expression. One second, guys. I have to speak a lot, so I feel dry throat. So I'm just keeping my water handy with me. Let me keep it here. Great. And yeah, JSX versus HTML key differences. There are not a lot, but a few differences. I'll in fact use the you know the notes provided by Let's Upgrade, like I told you yesterday. For example, JSX uses attributes in camel case such as class name instead of class and HTML for instead of for. And yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of differences. It's just very, very superficial differences the way I see it. Okay. And what was the next thing? Probably the last thing that we discussed yesterday was React components. So we talked about functional components versus class components. Functional components is, yes, we're going to use functional components. Class components, boo, we're not going to use class components. But I still made a class component from what I remembered the last time I made a class component, right? This is coming from the class component and this is coming from the function component. So boo, we are not going to make class components. We are going to make function components, creating and rendering components. Let's go to a function one. Creating a function component is just as simple as writing a function, a normal JavaScript function, which returns a JSX. That's all. That's what a functional component is. And props passing data to components. I think we were discussing this topic the last time we were here. I have to also consistently make sure that I am not muted, because I think yesterday a couple of times I was told that I have gone on mute. I'll just make sure that that is not the case today. And I'm trying to be slower. I sometimes I understand that I go a little faster because I'm, like I said earlier, this is not a college class. I assume that the things I take for granted are things which you find easier to. But since that's not the case, I will intentionally go slower. And in a little while, I'll look at the comments as well. So props, passing data to components. Props is essentially, yeah, used to, we can invent attributes while we are rendering the components, and we can use them to pass specific properties to the components that we're using, specific data to the components we're using. We are rendering, and we call it props. It's a essentially a reserved name that every component has access to, ir- irrespective of it being a functional component or a class component. A class component will have an access to props as well. What I was doing here was using a use state to show you that, it's just, I can just render it somewhere. I'm going to be a little more, explain this in a little more detail today. And I think that's where we were yesterday. Did I miss something? I hope not. Did I miss something? Let me. So in Bootcamp, they make us use Create React App. Uh, Valencia. Uh, uh, Create React App is not recommended. It works. First of all, it works. Let's be clear. It's not like it doesn't work. It works, but it's not recommended. So the React team, they recommend using Next.js. So by that definition, React team dictates that they are not just a simple library anymore because they recommend using Next. They present themselves as a framework. Even though we are smart, we know that it's a library. Okay. So the reason we don't use create React app is because it works today. As of today, it works. But since it's not supported, we don't know if they introduce breaking changes and they stop supporting create React app. So for that reason, we don't use create React app. Just like we would rather not use a class component because again, they are supported, like they render and they work as of today, but I don't know if they continue to support it by tomorrow or literally the month after. React has advanced at such a rapid pace. We would want to stick with the safer options. Okay. uh okay, what's happening here, guys? I would really expect you guys to be civil to each other in the comments. If you have questions, direct them to me, not to each other, and please be respectful for of each other. Okay. Aditya, many big websites are still using CRA in production. You're right, many big websites are using, those are all legacy websites, just like many big websites are using uh, class components in their code because when they wrote it, class components were the standard. It causes problems when you want to update and use the latest API because now they are stuck on the specific version which supports their specific API. Okay. Okay. Let us move forward with the session today. We're talking about, okay, day two, deep dive into React features. The first thing that we have to tackle is we are talking about state and lifecycle. I will go on and open my own notes. And I think we used a class component yesterday here, right? So the very first thing is using use state in class components. Luckily, we did already declare a state in a class component that we use today, and we use a username called Sarthak just to make sure that this is what we are using. Instead of calling it a username, I'm going to call it my underscore name, and when I have to render it, I will say here my name is my underscore name is dot state dot my underscore name, and I have not started the project yet. Just give me a second, guys. I will explain what I'm doing to all of you. Let me open this at localhost 5173. Great. Let's bring the let's bring the browser here. Let's make it full screen so that you all can see it. I hope you all can. I'll make a few changes. Oh yeah. Okay. Let's do this. How about I not do this? Okay, class component, and similarly in function component, I will write this here. Okay. So I'll explain what I did. Yesterday, when we made the class component, in the class component, this is how we declare it. We write class, then the name of the component that we want to give. I encourage people to write component with it, as in give it the name component. So if it's instead of class component, if it's, let's say, the navbar component, the way I do it is I always tell it, I am always explicit in my naming. So if it's a navbar, I could have called it navbar, but instead I could have called it just navbar, but I always add what I'm making to the name of the entity. Yesterday it was just an example of a class, so I've called it class component. Though this is not a good naming scheme. Why? Because just calling it a class component, it's very broad. You need to be able to identify what you're making. Just calling it class component is not very is not very unique in terms of identification. So when you're making component, call it what you're making followed by component. That's what I do. That's what good practice is. And you extends it with component. Okay. And then inside it, you write a function called render, and that render function returns JSX. That's essentially what a class component is. One sec. Using state inside of class component. First of all, what is state? Let's do a quick revision. State is essentially the properties that the component is under the double quotes born with. So when the component is rendered, the properties that we want it to have at the time of rendering, in fact, the properties that we want the component to render with is essentially called state. Okay. So in here, I've declared a state, and this is how we declare a state. We write the constructor function. All of this is coming from object-oriented programming concepts. Now, I do not expect any of you to know object-oriented programming concepts. If you do, well and good. Really, very, very nice work, but you don't need to. That is where the entire JavaScript ecosystem is headed towards in general. Discounting TypeScript. TypeScript is not JavaScript. Anyway, so what I was saying was, I do not expect you to know object-oriented programming, because the driving force for JavaScript is functional programming, which is why we have functional components and not class components. And constructor, this entire concept comes from object-oriented programming. So while we're not using it anyway, for the purpose of explaining, I'm just giving you the heads up. We write a constructor function. We, initiate super props. Then we write the state as such. I can add more values in my state. So I can say last underscore name, and this can be any valid data structure available in JavaScript. So it can be another object. Okay. It can be an array. It can be, in this case, simply a string. Okay. So class component, my name is this.state.myname. I am going to use expressions to write this.state.myname and this.state.last name. Now, what I've done is I have exported this component here. Export default class component. So this is default export. Default export means that, it is available for import in any other file, just like I have it imported in the app.js file. So class component, I have imported from dot slash. In the dot slash means in the same directory as src, because app.js is in src. So in this same directory, I'm going inside the components directory, which is this, and then I'm going to the file called class component. Okay. And from there, I'm importing class component. Since it's a default export, I'm importing it as class component, but really I can import it with any name. Again, that's a property of default export. So I can simply just call it, what do you call it? Ferrari. So if I import it as Ferrari, I can render it as Ferrari and it would work. There you go. But again, good practice is to import it with the same name as what you've exported it. Okay. That is not, however, the case with named export. If you see, the functional component is a named import because I have exported it as a named export. Named export is, if you notice, it is not export default, it is export a constant, which is function. I'm naming what I'm exporting. That's what a named export is. Anyway, without going there, what is the purpose of set state in React class components? Set state is used to update the state of React component. It triggers a re-render and allows component to reflect changes in data or user interactions. Okay. One sec. I'll show you this by example, and I'll go here. तुषार हिंदी में बता दूंगा, तो मैं कोशिश करूंगा धीरे धीरे थोड़ा थोड़ा हिंदी में भी बताता रहूं, बट प्रिडोमिनेटली मैं इंग्लिश में ही बोलूंगा बिकॉज ज़्यादा लोग इंग्लिश समझ पाते हैं. ठीक है. Is the entire session going to be with class component of React? No, Vashu, it's going to be with functional components. Class component is part of the scope that is defined by LetsUpgrade. You may and most probably will encounter class components if you are dealing with legacy code. So you must understand what class components are, but please don't be worried. We are not going to do a lot with class components. This is probably the last time we are using the class components for the example. Okay. Okay. Now I want to make a button here in my class component. Let's make a button. Let's create a div and let's create a button. On the on click of the button, don't worry about what I'm doing right now. You need to understand what's happening. Don't worry a lot about what I'm doing right now. I'll explain what I'm doing. Just let me type. Okay. So this dot handle click. Let's define handle click here. Not const. Let's just define handle click here. How about I take this? Yeah. So within handle click, I'll do this dot set state. Let's get rid of this actually. Let's make it as simple as possible. Okay. So what I'm going to do is my colon, underscore name. How about let's take someone else's name from the chat. Let's take someone's name from the chat. Who wants to have their name printed here? I don't like class components of React. Oh, Vashu, nobody does. Nobody likes class component. आशुतोष, हाँ यार, हिंदी मदर टंग है, इंग्लिश मजबूरी है, बट हिंदी हमें इंग्लिश हमें जोड़ती है. आई एम सॉरी. हिंदी बहुत कम लोग बोलते हैं. ज़्यादा लोगों के लिए हिंदी मदर टंग नहीं है. जो लोग नॉर्थ इंडिया से बाहर रहते हैं वो अक्सर हिंदी नहीं बोलते. एंड आई एम अज्यूमिंग वी हैव पीपल फ्रॉम ऑल ओवर. वी हैव टू मेक दिस एक्सेसिबल फॉर ऑल द पीपल. सो आई एम स्पीकिंग दिस इन इंग्लिश. So yeah, Abhi. Okay, Abhi. And okay, I'll write all of your names. My name, Abhi, and Satya and Pallav. I hope that's your first name, my friend. If it's not, I'm sorry, but this is the things I've written. Uh, Guys, yeah, stop spamming. I think that's enough. So I think this is the name that I'm going to show there. So I have not written anything in the button. Change name, class component. My name is, when I click on this, it changes. My name is Abhi and Satya and Pallav. I'm going to refresh it just so that you can say it again. When I click on the button, it changes the name to what I have defined here. So essentially, state was an internal property that the component was rendered with. In this case, I gave it a key of my name and a value of Sarthak. And on button, now this is why I assume you all should know a bit of JavaScript, right? So this is an event handler. This says that on the click of button, I want to run this function. Okay, the function is called handle click. Now I've written the handle click function here. Gosh, I cannot speak. I've written the handle click function here, and I've defined the function as when I click on this function runs. Okay, and this function does only one thing. It sets the state. What state? It sets the key, my name. Earlier the value of the key my name was Sarthak. Now it is saying that it has to set the state to Abhi and Satya and Pallav, the new value that I am giving here. Okay, that is as simple as that. Sirisha, the notes are available. You can find them in the description. Can someone please help Sirisha to help her find the notes for this chapter? The one that we all are using, the ones that I am using. Okay. Let's Upgrade has put the notes there. Please use them, Sirisha. Okay, so I'm going to refresh this again for the last time to show you guys that when I click on change name, 1, 2, 3, click, and it changes the name. Now I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next. How does set state differ from direct assignment of state variables? So unlike direct assignments, set state enqueue state updates, ensuring proper handling of asynchronous updates and batch processing for performance optimizations. I'll explain it to you in very simple words. Not this is a very professional definition of what it does. This is not wrong, but practically no one uses it. I'll tell you what it does. So we use set state because and not a direct assignment. We can use a direct assignment. Let me show you by doing a direct assignment. Okay, so instead of putting this as props, I will just make a variable, call it my underscore name, and give it a value of Sarthak. Okay, I don't even have to call it. I don't even have to give it whatever I'm making. Don't even have to give it a qualifier of var. Okay, and on handle click, let me not do it this way. What I'm saying is, let me not write it down this way. Instead of that, on handle click, let me simply update it, and you guys would see what's happening. So if I do a handle click, let's do this. Now, maybe it won't show here, but what really happens is, let's go and see. Is it rendering? It's not even rendering. Awesome. This is what I expected my good framework to do. Let's see if we have any error. Yes, can't access property my name. This is the error. Oh yeah. So instead of this, let me write it this way. Still can't access property. My name is not defined. Let me take it outside. See, all of this just to make sure that we have it. My name. Do we have it here now? Change name. It will not update. See, no matter how many times I press it, it is not updating. So what I'm trying to say is one, and what is written here is what I did right now was a direct assignment of value. So I directly created a variable called my name and directly assigned it a value of Sarthak. And while it will render, because I'm using uh, like literally a variable, it's no different than using an expression. It is no different than using writing 4 plus 6 here. It is no different than this. It will not update because one of the uh, functions of sets one of the functions of state is that it triggers a re-render on the parts that has the state, right? And that is not going to happen simply because this is not a state right now. So even if I click, and I can prove it to you that I click, when I will click here, you will notice here a new box appears in here. So see, 1 2 3 go, and it is saying uncaught error, expected on click listener to be a function, instead got a value of string type return. uh Let it be a function. Okay. Happy? Is it happy? It's still not doing, even though it's giving us any more errors. Why is it not doing? Why is it not updating the name here? Because it is not triggering a re-render. That's why we have state for. See, I'm clicking on, let me bring it here. I am clicking on it and it's not changing. That's why we have states. Okay, let's bring it back to a position where we were earlier so that it changes, it in fact changes. I think that's where we were. What error? What did I miss now? Oh, here. This was the part. It should work now. Work as expected now. It is working. Great. Am I on mute? I am not on mute. Awesome. Sir, how do we handle toggling navbar on click? Here we use state management or simply DOM manipulation. Ashutosh will use DOM manipulation. It can be based on state. It can be based on some other prop. But to put it in very simple terms, we are going to use DOM manipulation. More questions, people? More questions for me, Vashu. Okay, I don't think I have any more questions. So let's move on. Let's move on to the next parts of the session today. And just like that, we are, more than halfway down the whatever we had to study today. What are the common pitfalls or mistakes to avoid when using set state? Some common mistakes including directly mutating states, relying on the current state for update and asynchronous updates, uh, leading to race conditions. Okay, so in very simple terms, when we are, oh, one sec, let me go back to my notes. So in very simple terms, we could have done it this way as well. In very simple terms, what it says is instead of this, we could have done it this way as well, and it would have worked just as fine. Let me refresh. Let me click. Oh, takes an object. Does take an object. Actually, there is no problem. I can instead, you know, probably use some other structure to make you understand, not a string. So maybe let's show it to you by making a counter, a rather simple one at that, a rather very simple one at that. So instead of this, I can just simply say not egg count, but count, assign it 0. This dot say dot count. Now I hope I don't have to explain it again what I'm doing here. I hope you're all able to understand what I'm doing. If not, write down the exact things what you don't understand in the chat. But I really hope that you guys do understand now what I'm doing. So that's it. And what do? I give it a object count this dot state dot count dot no not dot plus 1. Who? So essentially what it says is I am deriving the new state of the count. I am deriving the new state by using the old state. So if the old state here is 0, and instead of change name, let's call it increment. Okay. So if I go here, refresh, click on increment, it clearly increments it by 1. That's what the logic is. But the logic is not just that. The logic says that I'm deriving the new state, the new count, by using the old state. This dot state dot count plus 1. So I'm adding 1 to the previous value of the count. This is one of the very popular pitfalls that people used to make when we used to write in class components. Thank God we don't do it anymore, and thank God we don't have. We are free from. Mohan, can you make a simple project to understand more efficient? Simpler than this? Mohan, there's really nothing in this project. It's really the simplest project that I can make. It's genuinely just one component. In fact, two components, but genuinely just returning simple values from two components. Do you guys think that this is a little more complicated class? Please let me know. Sir, how many hooks should we know? Vashu, ideally you should know just 3. You would do very good in 3. In fact, I would say that for 80 to 90% of times you're only going to use 2 react hooks. One is use state, and then one is your use effect. The third hook, which you should know, which would make you a rather complete react developer, is the use context hook, okay, or the context API. Now context API is not as frequently used as the use state hook and the use effect hook. Context API can also be substituted for your state management libraries and so on and so forth. But predominantly, you should know 3. There are multiple, I think, multiple React hooks which React keeps introducing with new versions. But I think 3 would be pretty good for you to know. Sorry. No, I'm not talking about who's this. One sec. Pallav, I'm not going to talk about class components anymore. So this will not get any more complicated than it did already, as long as it is concerned about class components. So, you might as well just comment it out. So we're not going to talk about class components anymore. All that is in the past. We are done with class components. Don't worry about this. This is just my linter being extra cautious. Okay. So I've commented that out. That's not going to be any more complicated. So please guide me for React fresher interview. Yash, I am. If you have any specific questions, send them to Let's Upgrade. I will be answering questions associated to React, but I will unfortunately will not have enough time to take, let's say a React interview session. So, but yeah, let's go on. Vedavi. Okay. I'm sorry, Vedavi. Like I said, I did not know if that was your first name or your last name. I'm really sorry. I did not mean to offend you. What did Aditya said? What did Aditya say? Mostly you use state use effect. Yeah, Aditya said right. We, like I said, three. You only need to know three, out of which 90% of times you're going to use state and use effect. You still should know use effect. Sorry, use context, but it's not gonna. You're not gonna. It's not gonna bother you so much when you're just beginning your journey. So it will come later. Uh, anyway, let's move forward. आगे बढ़ते हैं. Okay, guys, converting a class component to the function component with hooks. Yeah, I think we have reached a point where we don't have to use class components anymore. But again, for probably the last time, I'm gonna show it here just so that I can get rid of it. Is my oh great, my keyboard's battery died. Give me a second, guys. The battery of my keyboard died. I need to connect it to a charger, and I hope that it works again. Guys, give me a second while my keyboard is rebooting. I will take your questions. What are the names of those three, Ashutosh? The names of those three are use effect, use state, use context. That's it. Those are the only three hooks that you need to know. My keyboard's battery died. That's new. I should have charged it. Are we online? Are we online? I think we are. My keyboard is online. Great. So let me. I'm uncommenting it so that we can convert it into a functional component, and then we can get rid of all the class things that we did here. Okay. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna comment everything. No, not delete everything, but comment everything out here and convert this into a class component. If you guys had been paying attention since yesterday, like I said, a functional component is literally just a JavaScript function which returns JSX. Okay, so let's go by that. So first, let's make a JavaScript function. Now, let's call it class to functional component. Okay, this is a JavaScript arrow function. Simple as that. It returns some JSX, and that's it. That should be it. If I call it class component, why is it causing a problem? Fast refresh only works when file is exports. Okay, I've not exported it. Let me export it. Let me in fact export it as a default export. So export default. What's the name? I'll simply copy it from here, paste it here. Let's move forward. It will still work even though the names are not the same. And why it will work is something I've explained to you earlier. So I don't think I'll have to explain it again. Let's write it as short as we can. So yeah, this was, come on, a class component, but now it's been converted to a functional component. Okay, great. This should work if I am not wrong. What is the problem you're getting? No problem. This was a class component, but has now been converted to a functional component. Simple as that. Rest everything remains the same, and we go on from there. Okay, guys? Any questions? What's happening in the chat? We have not reached context API. I don't think we are going to use context API in this thing, in this session. Aditya, it would be helpful if you, you know, not mention things that we are not going to talk about. I mean, the syllabus is available for everyone. I'll tell you why I'm telling you this, because it's just going to confuse people. So probably not. Okay. Okay. Let us go on. It's as simple as that. I mean, we have converted it to a functional component. Why would you convert a class component to a function component with hooks? Actually, let's integrate hooks as well. And we were using the useState hook in it, right? I'm going to write the entire functionality that we had written here. I'm going to, simply just literally copy paste it here and recreate the functionality. So that being that, I'm just copy pasting a lot of stuff. It's probably not going to make sense to you right now, but if it does, well and good. What I've done is I've copied all the, in fact, let me do it again. I'm copying all the JSX from here because that remains the same, right? So copying everything here and uncommenting it. Simply uncommenting things out. Okay. The state. Now we have the state. I don't need to write it like this. This is one of the good parts about writing a functional component. I can write my state here. I have to use the, first I have to import state. Okay. So import. Now this is a hook. Okay. Use state is a hook, first of all, from Reactjs, not Reactjs, but React. Use state is a hook, and the way it works is we simply call the hook and give it an initial value. In here, the initial value was the number 0, because remember, we're talking about count, right? The number 0. And it returns 2 values. What 2 values it returns? Inside an array, it returns the first value is how you identify the state. So in here, we are calling it count. And the second value is the setter function for it. So set count. Okay. Set a function for it. So set count. So now if I am to write the handler function, let me write it here again, copy pasting the entire thing, putting it here and commenting it out. Instead of doing a this dot set state, I can, and again, don't need to use this here. Instead of using handle click, I can simply you know, to a, come on, uh, set count this. Why is this causing problem? Why is hand click is not defined? Am I using it wrong? I think I'm using it wrong. Wait, give me a second. I'll just open up my own notes where I've written this, and I will be able to shoot you. Hand click is not defined. Any? How is this a problem? Okay, guys, give me a minute. This happens. This does sometimes happen. Oh, set count. Instead, I can just do count plus one. Okay. I don't need to use this here, that's for sure, because it's an arrow function. Let me move this outside. I don't need to define it inside. Nope. What am I doing wrong? Am I writing something wrong? Is it inside the function? It is inside the function. I don't even have to move it outside. What am I doing wrong? Let me write it down. Const handle click. Let me write down again for the purpose of, you know, just making sure that I'm not missing anything here. Handle click. I have to use set count. That's the function that I'm using. I have to give it count plus one. Why was it not working before? I think I was doing the same thing. Was I missing a bracket somewhere? Because this is what I was doing the last time. Anyway, let me format it. No, not formatted. Let it be. Does this work? Let's just see if it works. Let me get rid of the errors. Let me refresh it. Let me. Okay, works. I have no clue, guys. I think I was using it the correct way, because that's how you define it. You define a function. You don't have to call it this, and that was a brain freeze on my part if it happened using something stupid. That was a brain freeze on my part. I was not using the const keyword. Okay, like I said, that was a brain freeze on my part. Maybe happens. Okay, I've just converted this into a class component, and I hope you guys agree in my assessment that it is much simpler than writing it in this manner. So we are simply going to get rid of it. Okay. Okay. And that. So yeah, I hope you agree with me when I say that this is a relatively easier way to write components than you can in a class components. Which is the best approach, function or class components? Surjit, there is a recommended approach. I can tell you that The recommended approach is using a functional component, because functional components are based on the, you know, philosophy on which JavaScript is based. It's a functional language, not an object oriented language. Class components work, they still work, and in fact, class components are still used in large code bases which were written, you know, a long time ago. So they are still used. Please don't be, please don't assume that class components don't work. They still work, but we don't use them anymore in any more code that we are writing. We have collectively, the React community has collectively moved away from class components. I hope that answers. Uh, okay, let's move ahead. What do we have to do next? I'll give you an example of a use state hook as well. Okay, and for that, let us do something fun. Okay, there is this thing called tokeapi.co. I am going to fetch some data from it in use state. Okay, guys, what are your favorite Pokemon? Everyone gets only one reply. Please do not spam. What are your favorite Pokemon? I'll pick one and we'll get data for that. So everyone gets only one reply. Please do not spam. What are your favorite Pokemon? Pikachu, Charizard. Okay. Which other? Snorlax. Well, I like Snorlax. Uh, Ashutosh, React Native, the skills are transferable. In React Native, the JSX is different because you are not converting JSX to your HTML elements. You are converting it to React Native elements, but the skills are transferable. It also, like use state, use effect, all the things that we are learning here in React, they work in React Native. Literally, the API is the same. You use React and React Native. It's in the name, so it works. But be very cognizant of the fact that uh, you know, JSX changes, because while we are using JSX to write HTML components here, we'll be using them to write native components there. Okay. Uh, okay. How about let's pick one. I see a lot of people like Pikachu. Let me go on and open up my, you know. Achha, guys, I'm assuming you guys don't, uh, you guys do know async await. I'll actually lead with the example that you guys don't, but I hope from your JavaScript classes that you guys understand promises, as in how they are resolved. Don't worry, this is not going to be a deep dive into promises. We will not go there because JavaScript handles that for you. I mean, if you have done your, if you have done your JavaScript classes properly, then you would know. But why I'm asking for promises, because you would, when I'm resolving promises, I'm going to use the .then framework to write them down. I'm still not going to use async await, just the .then, which is essentially the simplest way of writing it. And I hope you find it. I hope you understand. You guys can understand it too. So we were finding the data for Pikachu. Let's submit it. This is what we get for Pikachu. If I copy it, let's open it here. This is the data that we get for Pikachu. Okay. Now I want everyone to make this with me on their React projects. I'm hoping that you guys have been writing up projects for yourself. If you are, I want you all to write this with me. Okay. So we're gonna go ahead and make a component in which we are going to use the useEffect hook and the useState hook, and I'm going to write the component first, then I'm going to explain what it does. So when I'm writing, if you don't understand, please don't worry, I will explain it later. I will first have to write. Okay, so let's call this fav pokemon .jsx. Okay, and also I'm using this extension called react snippets. It's, I think, react something snippets. Yeah, snippets. It's essentially just snippets, ES7 snippets. Okay, I'm using this extension. Why am I telling you this? Because when I'm using this extension, now if I go here, if I have to make a new functional component, all I have to do is type R, F, C, E, and press enter. RFCE stands for React Functional Component Export. Okay, that's all I've done. So, and I'm trying not to be fancy in my, when I'm writing code, but if there is something that you do not understand, please do not hesitate in asking. First of all, let's just make sure that we are exporting this and importing this in our app. Let me comment everything out here. Let me comment everything out so that we can begin write a fresh component. So, and comment these out as well. Import the fav Pokemon component. Again, so I just wrote FAV and this showed me where I have to import it from, and I can just click enter and it will import it from here. See, it has imported here. It was also writing it there. And on line number, it was just writing it as a uh, you know as a token, and I just deleted that token. So fav Pokemon component, I'm just going to render this component here now. As simple as that. It should render everything that is inside this component. It says fav Pokemon component, fav Pokemon component. That's all it says right now. Okay. Now, guys, again, I'm gonna write some code. I would want you to just just see me write first, then I'm going to explain. I am going to, while I'm writing, I am going to keep talking about what I'm doing, but if you don't understand, please don't worry, I'm going to explain it again. Okay, first things first, I am going to convert this into a arrow function. Okay, that's good. Now I'm gonna get useEffect and use state both. So import use state use effect from React. Now I'm gonna set a fav Pokemon in state. So what do we call the fav Pokemon? Oh, let's keep it simple. Let's call it fav Pokemon. Set fav Pokemon. State, let it be Snorlax. I think I heard someone write Snorlax there. Okay. So my fav Pokemon is fav Pokemon. Let's just make sure this gets rendered. It does. Now let's work with use state. What is the API that we have to use? This is the address. Let's copy it for Pikachu. Let's copy it for Pikachu. Let's call it const URL. Let's give it this value. And let's yeah, useEffect. Let's use the useEffect API. useEffect. Hey, it should write the useEffect API for me. Is it not writing? It doesn't matter. useEffect snippet. Wait, it does. I don't want anything here. I don't want this function either. Wait, in space of first, I just simply wanna fetch module. Do I want fetch module? No, I don't want fetch module. Let's use the normal browser fetch. Let's do a fetch to URL dot then and dot then and dot catch, and I think that should be it. Let's write down let's write down the definitions of these dot thens. Okay, let's first write them down in different lines. I'll get a res. I'll do a res.json. I'll get data here. I'll set the Pokemon with that data. Set fav Pokemon with data, and on catch will do an error and we'll log that error. Simply log that error. Let's make sure everything is formatted properly. Instead of doing this, let me do this and just log the data and just say the data we got is here. Let's call it data. Okay, let's go here on our project and let's delete the console, refresh the console. The data that we get was here. Nice. Let's find out where we get the name. Should be a name. So data.name. Fav Pokemon dot name. Now we can set fav Pokemon, not data, but data. Does this work? My fav Pokemon is Pikachu. Let me refresh. Let me see. It is Pikachu. Great, that works. Okay, that works. I think I will go on and explain this to everyone now. In the meantime, let me first quickly check if I have any more comments. How do I get URL? Uh, it's actually a free API which anyone can use. It's called Poke API. Okay, it's pokeapi.co. That is what I'm using. Okay, uh, and I would like everyone to go to pokeapi.co right now. And on Poke API, you will see an interface like this. All you have to do is just write the name of your favorite Pokemon here. So I think someone suggested uh, in the comments suggested Charizard. Okay, so if I write Charizard here, we get all the details for Charizard. Now I can copy this URL and I can write it here. Essentially, I'm just changing this. So if I write Charizard, if I change Charizard here, I'm getting data. I'm getting data from the API. What data am I getting? This data. I'll show you. This is for Charizard, and this is for Snorlax. I think someone said Snorlax as well. Come on. Snorlax. Attendance link, guys. You are a little late, but yes, attendance link. It's uh, in the description, guys. Somebody please give them the attendance link. Const step, can you again? Const, what const step? Const is just a access modifier, that's all. I hope you read about it when you were learning JavaScript. Const is just an access modifier, nothing more. Okay, now I will explain the code that I have written. I will skip the parts that I had explained earlier in this class. For example, I will skip the part of use state, but I will explain this use effect to you. Okay, and I hope that's okay with everyone because uh, we just read about use state earlier. We just saw it with examples, so I'm not going to do it with use state. Uh, okay. Am I on mute? No, I'm not on mute. Great. Whew. So, okay, this is a component that I'm declaring. Okay. In this component, there's one sec. Give me 1 second. I have to write something to the Let's Upgrade team. Give me a second. My GitHub account, Ashutosh, most of the repositories on my GitHub account are private, but at the rate, it's github.com what am I writing? Saying it's this, it's github.com slash at the rate Sarthak1991. So essentially, this is my GitHub account. It's github.com slash Sarthak1991. That's my GitHub account. But most of my repositories, if not all, are uh, private. All the important ones are. So you'll not find anything interesting there. If you want, you can follow me on Twitter if you have any questions. And guys, please don't feel that you're forced to. Please don't follow me if you don't want to. I'm just saying, if you want to ask any questions or connect with me, you can follow me on Twitter. It's simply Twitter.com/Sarthak Batra. That's my name. Twitter.com/Sarthak Batra. That's all. So yeah. Anyway, the back to the code. Okay, so let's talk about what we were doing here. Declare a component, use the state to set the initial state of my favorite Pokemon as Snorlax. Now, if I comment out useEffect for a minute, you guys will see that. Uh, yeah, that's just my linter, you know, being extra cautious. But if I comment out my use effect hook for now, you guys will see that for my fav Pokemon, it will show you nothing. It will show you nothing. I don't know why. Let me have a look. Pokemon. Oh, I'm calling it by a API that doesn't exist. Let's actually not do it. Let's you know make it so that it works in both the cases. Pokemon.name. Yeah, it was missing the .name key, which was I had modified it because of the result I was getting from the URL. I was just using the string, but let's just be consistent. What I'm doing is fav Pokemon.name is Snorlax. That is what I'm doing here. So my fav Pokemon is Snorlax. Now, if I bring the use effect back, first of all, let me explain what use effect does. And for that, I will do the use effect snippet. Okay, use effect is a function that runs a function. Okay, first of all, runs a function. This is the first function. In that first function, it returns a second function. Okay, and third that you see here is the dependency array. I'll explain all of what that means. I'll explain all of what that means. So first function is what it runs before the content on the page, the content of the component is rendered. So essentially what I'm saying is before the component is rendered, I'm running a fetch call. This is what I'm running before the component is even rendered. That's my first function here. The second function is usually a cleanup function. So if you're coming from the world of class-based components, this is component did mount. This is component will unmount. And this is your dependency array. What does dependency array means? It just means the array of values which, if they change, the function will re-trigger, and so the state or the component will re-render. Currently, it's empty. Why is it empty? Because we only want to run it once, and then we don't want to re-render it every time something else changes. That's what we want. We don't want it to render again and again and again. Okay. So we keep it an empty array. And thus we reach here. Now, I will explain how fetch works as well, though not in great detail, because I'm assuming you understand fetch, how fetch works from the world of JavaScript. If you have read JavaScript, which I'm assuming everyone here has read and understood JavaScript, fetch is a simple browser API. It's not even JavaScript API. It's a simple browser API. What it does, it just, what I'm doing right here is I'm just fetching some data from some URL. From some URL. This is the URL. And when that data is fetched, Pokemon. Am I calling it Pokemon? Not Pokemon. Great. When that data is fetched, I am updating my state. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm doing. So I'm updating the state when the data is fetched. And this should now work as expected. I will get rid of all the data that I had written before. I'm just cleaning the function up. Just getting rid of all the data that I had written before. Just so that we can go back to a working function. Let's copy this here. Let's write this here. I hope that works. I hope it works. So if you see that when I, when I when there is nothing here, when I the first time I refresh the function, it says Snorlax for a minute, and then as I get the data from the API, it updates it to Charizard. What will be more useful is instead of calling it Snorlax, you just call it loading. So essentially, it is signifying that till the time we don't have a data, we're just calling it loading. Okay, there's a better way to represent it. I will show you here. Actually, you know what? Let's keep it simple. Let's just keep it this way. There's a better way to do it, which is conditional rendering, but let's not go there. It's outside the scope of this discussion that we are having today. So let's go here. Okay. Where can I see the JSON of the Pikachu on the browser? Srushti. Uh, Srushti, you go to pokeapi.co. You will reach here. You write down your Pokemon of choice. If you want Pikachu, write down Pikachu here. Copy it from here. Go to your browser. Paste it. Press enter. You get the JSON. Is that good? Okay. How do we go forward? All this work just to say Charizard. Yes, Ashutosh. All this work just to say Charizard. But if again you guys are free to choose your own Pokemon. I stopped watching Pokemon like ages ago. But I tell you what, I was very. My favorites were Ditto and Mew and Mewtwo. Those were my favorites. Ditto because it can become any Pokemon. So I was like, you know what, nobody can defeat me. If you're a water type, I'll become a rock type or grass type or whatever to defeat you. So I was very, enticed by Ditto. Okay. I think we have time. We have enough time to move forward in the class today. Am I on mute? I hope I'm not on mute. Oh, well, as luck would have it, we are going to talk about events, handling events, and conditional rendering. That's what's remaining in the day. Uh, okay, if that is where we have to go, then this that is where we will go. Let's go to handling events. We just spoke about handling the click events. Okay, let's talk about handling the form events. Hmm. Let's just see. Let's just see. What I'll do here is I'll create a form so that anyone can get their own data for their own uh, Pokemon of choice. Okay, that's what we'll do, and we'll submit that. On submit, we will run a function, or that function will fetch the data, and that data will then be displayed. Okay, that's what we're going to do. As usual, I'm going to write the component first, and then I'm going to go ahead and explain. So if you don't understand, please bear with me. So fav Pokemon component, let's modify this component. Let us modify this component instead of doing this. Let's make another one called fav Pokemon form.jsx. Fav Pokemon form React functional component export. Okay, let's take this out in here. Let's start writing down the form. When we are writing down the form, I'll borrow a few elements from this. I'll borrow this. Pokemon form. I will form. I will import use state. It's a named import. I will import it from React. Okay. This goes outside return, not inside return. Fav Pokemon and set fav Pokemon doesn't, we don't have it right now. Let's remove this. Use state I have to get, oh, I haven't. Hmm. Calling function, it's legal, yeah. Declared but value never read. Declared but value never read. Let's sort these out. One sec, guys. I'm one sec, guys. One sec, guys. Give me a minute. Hey guys, I'm sorry, that was a call from the Let's Upgrade team letting me know that my screen is not visible. I am sorry. Uh, is the screen visible now? Screen not visible. I am sorry. I just got a call from the Let's Upgrade team telling me that the screen is not visible. Something funny happening with my uh, connection, because obviously I didn't do it intentionally. But I will write this function again. I'm just removing everything and writing this function again just to show you what I did till now. So I did RFCE just to get the function, make the function. I got rid of the React import above. Then I just wrote down the function here. Notice I have erroneously, I've just copied this value from the fav Pokemon component. Notice that I've erroneously copied it inside the return. So I will, in a moment, I will go on and take it outside the return. Then I'm making the, uh, you know, writing down the JSX for the form. Then I'm importing use state from React, and then I noticed that, I have in fact copied it inside the return, and so I took it outside. That is where we were. So that is all. That is all that we have. That is all that I had done till now. Okay. Okay. So that is all that I had done till now. And now I'm going to, instead of writing this, I'm going to, let's say, uh, let it not be a function. I will just call it empty string. It's an empty string because initially we don't know what the fave Pokemon is. And the fave Pokemon form, let us make a form here. Again, I'm writing the component first. I'll explain it later. So please bear with me. Let's make a form. Uh, I don't want action here. I don't want nothing here. Let's go to the next place. Let's make the label HTML4. Actually, let me just call it enter your Pokemon. Okay. Let's just make an input field for it. So input type text, value of Pokemon, and on change fav Pokemon handler. Now I have to make a button for submit. Let's make a button, type submit. Let's call it fetch my favorite Pokemon. I have exported it. Let's make sure that we are importing it. So I'm copying this from here, going all the way up here, commenting this out, writing fav Pokemon form, and I'm gonna render that form here again, commenting this out here. Let's call it fav Pokemon form, and I hope this gets rendered as expected. It is not. Is using incorrect casing. Incorrect casing. Pascal case for React components. Let me just remove extra. Let me just close extra tabs, which I don't need right now. They just cause confusion. Function component, close everything down. Fav Pokemon, don't need it. Pokemon form. Go back to app.jsx. Have Pokemon form. Copy paste it. Have Pokemon handler is not defined. Okay. Uh, yeah, Have Pokemon handler is not defined. It's right. So const Have Pokemon handler is an arrow function which currently does nothing. Log, it just logged something. What does it log? Fav, fetch Fav Pokemon here. What is this? Oh, arrow function. Is it good? Set Fav Pokemon right now. For now, let me just comment this out. Great. This should now work. So if I click on fetch my Fav Pokemon, yeah, on submit, it is just going to refresh the form. Yeah, so let's not make it type submit. Let's make it type button. Type submit. One sec. I don't want to refresh the form, but on change, this should not happen. Yeah. So let's remove this from here for now, and let's write this down here for now. And let's make sure that it is console logging this. That's all that we want for now. Yeah, let's. What is it saying? I will give it a value. I did not give it an on change. On change. Okay, let's give it an on change. Set Pokemon handler. Let's make a function called set Pokemon handler. Are we here? Okay. So const set Pokemon handler, Fav Pokemon handler. Okay. Different enough. It takes event and it outputs. First of all, let's do an event dot prevent default. If I can spell it correctly, it's preventdefault, prevent default, and then let's just log it out. Let's just log it out. Let's log out. Pokemon. Favpokemon. Fast Pokemon. Let's actually not make it a form. Let's not make it a type submit. Okay. And for now, let's comment this out. Do we get this? Okay. Let's trigger this when we do an on click. Let's trigger this. Have Pokemon handler. Refresh. Have Pokemon here. Okay. Now, if I start writing, it is giving me an empty string because I've not set the function here. I've not even used the function anywhere. So it is the empty string. Let's solve for it. Okay. So let's do a e dot target dot value. Okay, for now you stay here. If I write Charizard here, Charizard, great. I am getting the values that I put in here, but they're not getting updated. They're not getting updated because I didn't set the values here. Let me update it. Set have Pokemon. We do a same as we did above, e dot target dot value. Fresh CHAR IZARD. It is getting logged. It is getting put here. Okay. Now we have to fetch data for it. Okay, let's fetch data for it. Set Pokemon handler, Pokemon handler. I'm again gonna copy some code from here, some code that we had written earlier. So I'm gonna copy that code from Fab Pokemon. I'm gonna copy the fetch calls, and I'm gonna just paste them here. The function name has to be this. As a matter of fact, let me just comment it out for now, and let's see if this works. Let's see if this works. Let's refresh. Let's clear out the console. Let's write Charizard, and if I press this, oh yeah, let's construct the URL. So let us construct the URL here. I forgot to get the URL. Let's do a Fab Pokemon. Should this work? There's only one way to find out. Pikachu. It does work. We have got the data here. And so we can simply write let's make another div. Let's call it data for the fetched Pokemon. It will be Pokemon dot name. Let's make it as simple as that. So initially it will be empty. It should be empty. Let me do this for Charizard. And if I fetch it, this should get the data for Charizard. Hold on. What is the value of FAV Pokemon? I think I'm getting the value of FAV Pokemon dot here. I'm not setting that value, which is why it is not getting updated. I am not setting that value, which is why it was not getting updated. I've set the value now. It should get updated now. So if I write Pikachu, I really hope I'm spelling it correctly. Pikachu, I press it, I get an object. That's fine too. It's actually fine too that I'm getting an object. At least I'm getting the data. Worry about getting the name from it later. Yeah, we'll worry about getting the that from it later. Let's make it simpler. Let's get rid of this so that I can explain. Guys, okay, now I think I should be explaining it to you. Am I saving it properly? I am saving it. Let's just see where we are. Also, my fever Pokemon Pikachu. Can you explain again? Uh, aren't you using Prettier for code formatting? I am not using Prettier for code formatting right now. It just messes up with my code. The correct screen is not visible. Is it still not visible? The coding screen is not visible. I think I'm way up in my chat. I have to come back to the chat again, which I will. But first, let me explain this piece of code to you. And I'm going to do that in steps. Okay. The very first thing that I did was I rendered this component out. In this component, I have two things. One is this label and input, which forms this part for me. Okay. The second is the button. What does the button do? Button just submits the event for me. Okay. Not just submits, it calls the events for me. The event in this case is on click, and whenever this button is clicked, I am calling a function called fav Pokemon handler. Now, before we go there, I'm also using a state with an empty string for my Pokemon. Okay. Empty string for my Pokemon, and I am doing on change I'm doing a set Pokemon handler. No, on first let me talk about this. When the button is clicked, I'm doing a fav Pokemon handler. The fav Pokemon handler is a simple thing. It's a very simple thing. It does the same thing that we did last time when we were doing fav Pokemon.js. Essentially what it does is that it simply gets the data for the Pokemon that is entered in the input field. Okay. Now, how do we know what is entered in the input field? We are using another uh, event handler called onChange. It is triggered every time this field is updated. Okay. So, and I've given it a handler of set Pokemon handler. I know the naming can be difficult. In fact, ideally these two should be, two different states, but for the purpose of simplicity, I've deliberately condensed it down into just one state, so that there is less confusion. Ideally there should be two different states, and this should be updated simply when I'm calling the when I'm changing the value. But for the purpose of simplicity, I know it's not ideal, but for the purpose of simplicity, I've used just one state instead of two, because keeping track of two states is kind of confusing, and used two different functions so that I can differentiate the functionality of what this is doing and what that is doing into two different functions. So set Pokemon handler is only doing one thing. What is it doing? It is a logging the value of the that we are getting from the event, and event is non-cancelable. I'm just preventing the default uh, behavior of it. So I'm just making sure that it doesn't do its default behavior. Stop preventing it from there. That's the very first thing I'm doing. So event.prevent default. Prevent default is a function that is available inside the event object. That is where it is coming from. So this is essentially the event object. Every uh, input element, whenever you change that, they come attached with the event object. Okay. And I can, for the purpose of demonstration, I can log that event as well. Again, for the purpose of demonstration, let me log that event. Let me refresh. So when I click on C, you'll find the entire event. E is not defined. Where is event? Let me refresh. Let me write down C. You'll find uh, everything. This is the event that we have right now. So the event that we're using is on change. I'm just preventing the default behavior of this event. So let me again comment out the event that I was logging earlier, and explain it to you in more default. I'm preventing the default behavior. The default function comes from the event object, and in fact, let me comment out this console log as well. And then what I'm doing, whatever the value is coming from the event, so event.target.value, whatever that is coming, I'm setting that as the fav Pokemon in my state. As simple as that. That is the entire purpose of this uh, component. That is the entire purpose of this component. I'm writing down a few pointers. Prevent default function comes from the event object, and I'm just making some notes about what I've done. This is the Pokemon state. I'm just, wrapping up today's class, making up the notes. What I'll do, the last thing for today, is I will update this code on my GitHub, so that, and I will give the link to Let's Upgrade team so that you all can study it if you want to. So Pokemon state, and this is Pokemon fetcher function Can you explain how is it getting data for Fav Pokemon? Who's this? Let me just see one. See to uh, Aditya, brother. I want you to host your own classes if you are so uh, you know excited about teaching people. I would appreciate if you would not confuse the students. That's all for now. Anyway, Pokemon fetcher function. Yeah, someone asked me, I think Avdesh. Yeah, Avdesh, how am I getting data? Avdesh, what I'm doing is the Fav Pokemon, I'm this, inputting the Fav Pokemon into this URL. Where did I get this URL from? It's a publicly available URL called Poke API, which I'm using. This is the URL, it's Poke API. And how am I getting this value of Fav Pokemon? I am entering it inside my input here. That is what I'm doing. Okay. So this is where it is coming from. And I think, yeah, for now, we'll work on beautifying this tomorrow. We are really running out of time. And before the Let's Upgrade team comes back again and, you know, reminds me that I'm running out of time, let's wrap this up. I am going to host this into a new repository, repo.new. Let's call this React, small letters, React demo for Let's Upgrade. This is the code for React demo for the Let's Upgrade batch. Let's make it a private. Oh, yeah, private for now. I'll let the Let's Upgrade team handle this, creating repository. How about we go here because this is not. One sec. Not a good repository. Okay. So I'm gonna copy this, post this here. Okay. Git. I will take another program tomorrow, guys. I will, guys, understand that 6 hours is barely enough time for me to explain any concepts in detail. I would really, I'm really depending on you guys to practice these concepts and let me know if you're facing any problems. That is where I can be of help. But as as detail as I'm going inside, I can barely do it for a longer period of time. Guys, one sec. Let me just make sure that my computer doesn't go off because that will be okay. I was saying that I hope you guys understand that it is barely enough time, 6 hours, to do the entire React syllabus. I'm trying to just, you know, try not to go into a lot of detail, but make sure that you understand enough. So I'm deliberately skipping over a few, you know, concepts, trying to simplify it, making it as simple as I can. Get add all, status, get commit. -m react demo setup. Okay, push. Let's go to our repository. Is this updated? It is updated. Guys, this is the code for the repository that we have done till now. I will keep adding more comments to it. This is the link for it. I will pass this link along to the Let's Upgrade team. They should provide you with this link. Once I have heads up from them, this link will be made public. But that's for the class today. I will do a quick recap of what we did today. Okay, that is, we spoke about a lot about class functions, functions in general, class functions, component functions, use state, use effect, converted the class functions to a functional component, sorry, class component to a function component, and talked about fetching data, talked about using the hooks, use effect, on submit, on click, essentially using the events. That's what we did today. This was a rough idea about the current state of handling events. Tomorrow we will begin with conditional rendering. We'll talk about advanced React patterns. So we'll talk just a bit about the context API and higher order components. We'll talk about rendering props. Then I will give you a quick heads up about routing, and we'll probably make a mini project. Now we still have a lot left. We still have a lot left. So I don't think I will have the luxury of explaining in detail, guys. I'm giving you a heads up beforehand. I will probably not have the luxury of explaining everything in detail, and you guys should come in with that expectation for tomorrow. But yeah, for now, that's that. Uh, okay. Okay, guys. I think let me know if everyone's okay with that in the chat, and uh, you know, if that's okay with you. Simadri, if you already know Django, you know not necessarily need to learn, the syntax of setting up a server in JavaScript, like which is Node.js. But Node.js is simply just JavaScript that runs in the browser. It is nothing more. So if you know JavaScript, you know you technically know Node already. If you know JavaScript, that's for your benefit and understanding. But what you don't need to know is how to set up a server in Node. That's a different thing altogether. Java is becoming outdated. I do not think it is becoming outdated, my friend. It is very relevant. But yeah, that's a discussion for some other day. We'll have those discussions sometime later. Okay. Okay, guys, that's it for now. Bye for now, and I'll see you tomorrow. We'll probably not have as much time, but whatever time we have, we will rush through the rest of the given topics. Okay. Bye, guys.